Let's turn now to Trump's immigration crackdown this week. A judge dismissed an asylum claim revolving around this man, Andry Hernandez Romero, a gay makeup artist who was deported from the United States to that infamous Salvadorian mega prison. Now, this is just one of at least 14 similar immigration cases that have been dismissed recently. And now his lawyer is actually struggling to try to keep his case alive. Take a quick listen here.
I think that this is part of the government's plan to disappear these people fully and completely from the United States. In moving to dismiss Andry's case, the government was saying, we want to pretend that he never came here and never sought asylum.
And joining us now is NBC News correspondent David Noriega. Okay, David, before we get into the complexities here, like you hear case dismissed, if you are at the other end of the government, like that's a good thing, right? You usually think that that might mean you're getting out of jail or something. What's the case here?
So the way that Hernandez's lawyers found out that he was among this group of men who had been deported to El Salvador under the Alien Enemies Act was that back in March, he didn't show up to a hearing in his asylum claim, and he was detained at an ICE detention facility. So it was strange that he didn't show up. They investigated, figured out, basically put together, because the government was not releasing any information about this, that is why he was missing. Basically, that's why he had vanished, disappeared. The fact that he is not physically present in the United States is why this asylum case was dismissed. So if he had been present, the case wouldn't have been dismissed. It would have likely been decided either way. Either he would have been granted asylum or his asylum claim would have been rejected and he would have been deported back to Venezuela. That would have been the culmination of the due process of his immigration court hearing. So when we talk about due process in these Alien Enemies Act deportations, that is generally what we're talking about. We're talking about pending cases, often asylum claims, before the U.S. immigration courts. That is the process that was cut short by Trump's invocation of these special wartime powers. That is the cutting short of due process that attorneys and advocates and a lot of federal judges, mind you, object to, and the legality of which the Trump administration is struggling to prove in federal court.
This is a whole new set of cause and effect that we're seeing here. When it comes to his case and these other cases, what happens now? Does that dismissal get, I don't know, brought to the attention of anybody at this mega prison in El Salvador? What's the jurisdiction? Like, who is the judge that is now somewhat in charge of whether he remains in prison or whether he's released?
That is the multi-million-dollar question that nobody knows the answer to, and it is a question that is likely to be broached in one way or another by the U.S. Supreme Court at some point in the coming weeks or months. These people were removed to the custody of a third country, not the government of the country of origin, not the United States, in a prison that is singular for how strict it is and for the fact that it keeps people completely incommunicado with no contact with the outside world, no access to counsel, no access to any kind of habeas corpus petition, judge, anything. The legality of this agreement is precisely what's in question. As for what's next, you know, the lawyers who represent Hernandez in these 14 other cases that I reported about, they say that this isn't the end of the road. They can appeal this decision to the Board of Immigration Appeals. In Hernandez's case, he is the lead plaintiff in the very high-profile ACLU lawsuit against the Trump administration in Washington, D.C. before Judge Boasberg. That's the case that I say may very well wind up before the Supreme Court at some point in the nearish future. But none of those legal avenues are guaranteed or even likely to lead to any kind of immediate result, precisely because we've seen the Trump administration ignore court orders, including from the Supreme Court, to return or facilitate the return of people sent to El Salvador, specifically in the Kilmer Abrego Garcia case. And more importantly, because we're in completely uncharted territory here, legally speaking, and in terms of international diplomacy. In a number of respects, we are in completely uncharted waters, and it's extremely difficult to predict how this is going to play out.
Have his lawyers been able to talk to him? Like, do we know how he's doing?
No, I try and stress this every time that I talk about these cases, which I've been doing a lot lately. For over 2 months, the 268 or so men who were deported to El Salvador have had absolutely no contact with their lawyers, no contact with their loved ones. The United States government has not even acknowledged that they were sent to El Salvador. The only reason we know that they're there is because of leaks to the press, some media reports from inside the prison, including a video that Matt Gaetz shot for his show on One American News Network. Nothing has been official. There has been absolutely no transparency in this process, and nobody has been in contact with any of these men, not even to determine that they are still alive, not to mention that they're still doing well or anything specific about their condition.
Yeah, really appreciate you still asking the questions. David Noriega, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.